So we are going to go over our guided reading notes. You guys give me your answers of what you found, okay? So, what is an organism? Really simple, quick definition. What do we got, Gage?
Something that is made up of living things.
Okay. Even simpler, something that is a living thing. So, any living thing is considered an organism. Okay. The 6 characteristics all living things must share. What do we got? What are those 6 qualifications? Give me one.
Energy use.
Okay.
Energy use.
Yep. Energy use. So when they are performing different functions, they're using energy. What else? Daily.
Similar chemicals.
Okay. Similar chemicals, meaning they're made from similar things. They have similar components in them. Gage?
Cellular organization.
Yep. Cellular organization, so they're structured a similar way, or their cells are similar. Ansley.
Grow and develop.
Okay, they grow and develop. Allie.
Reproduce.
Okay, they can reproduce. And then one more, Kaylee.
Movement.
They what?
Movement.
Yes, that's part of it, but it'll be that response to surroundings. So that movement or that change that has to occur. Yep. Right? They have to have those same characteristics. Then our basic building blocks of all organisms are called what? Landon?
Cells.
They are called cells. That's what makes up everything. And then is the following sentence true or false? Most cells can only be seen with a microscope, which is a tool that magnifies small objects. Gage?
True.
It is true. We are made up of like billions and millions and trillions of cells. So they are very, very microscopic. Is the following sentence true or false? An organism made of many cells is a unicellular organism. Gage?
False.
It is false. What is a cell? What's an organism made of many cells called? Do we know? Remember? It's not unicellular. It has many cells. Remember, Allie? Multicellular. Yep. It just has many cells. Okay. Next, you need to highlight the letter that represents the most abundant chemical in cells. This is mainly what we are made up of. Haley.
Water.
Water. All right, and then lipids and what are the building materials of cells? Ansley? Lipids and proteins. 8 is the following sentence true or false? The cells of organisms use energy for growth and repair. Maris?
True.
It is true. Cells help us do a lot of things. 9, you are highlighting the letter that represents a change in an organism's surroundings that cause the organism to react. Nelly?
Yeah.
Which one?
C.
It is C. Yep, stimulus. Okay, and then give an example of stimulus and response. So what examples did you guys put? Taylor?
I put for a stimulus a shiny object for a baby.
Okay. And then what would the response be?
I kind of got confused on that one.
Okay. So your stimulus would be, let's say, like shiny object in front of a baby. Baby will move towards object. So they see that shiny object in front of them, they're going to move towards it because they want to play with it. Or like a mirror, when my daughter was a baby, you would sit a mirror in front of her and she would literally just like hold it and make faces in it and look at it and react. because she could see herself in her reflection. Okay? All right. What is development? How would we explain that? What is development defined as? Allie?
The process of change that occurs.
Okay. The process of change that occurs. We're going to continue to add to it though. Haley? I can't hear you. You got to speak up.
During organisms' life, to reduce and
Yep. Okay, so the process of change that occurs during an organism's life that produces a more complex organism. So, comparing growth and development is what your books do, and growth is essentially just getting bigger. So like as you grow, you get older, you get taller, you get more mature, things like that. That is just growing. Development is when you are like gaining more knowledge, you're learning new processes and skills to become better functioning, more efficient, and more complex. Okay? So, 12. All organisms can do what? Or produce offspring that are similar to parents. Gage.
can reproduce.
Can reproduce. Okay? 13. Is the following sentence true or false? Flies can arise from rotting meat. Maris?
False.
It is false. So this is going through the different experiments of Reddy and Pasteur, because people used to think that life and living things could just kind of appear out of nothing, or like be created out of like nothing. Okay? So this idea that living things can come from non-living sources is called what? Ansley? Yep. Spontaneous generation. Okay? Essentially, they just kind of like spontaneously create. Alright, so what did Francesco Reddy show in his experiment? This was the first experiment you had to look at. What was shown? Ansley.
He helped show.
Like what? You can explain the experiment.
He showed and it was first generation.
Okay, so he, we would say disproved spontaneous generation by showing that flies could not come from rotting meat. So he tested it. He put rotting meat in samples of jars. He closed one of the jars, kept one open. There were no flies on the rotting meat that had the closed lid. There were flies on the rotting meat that was open because it attracted those flies. They then laid eggs, which turned into maggots to then eat off the rotting meat. But if it was closed, nothing could come from that rotting meat. So rotting meat is non-living. Flies are living. Living things cannot come from something non-living. So he disproved that spontaneous generation idea. Okay, the factor that a scientist changes in a controlled experiment is called what? Allie? Yep. A manipulated variable. Okay? And then the other experiment that you read about was with Louis Pasteur. And we need to know if our statement is true or false. Louis Pasteur used a controlled experiment to show that bacteria arise from spontaneous generation. Yes or no? Neely? It is false. Okay, same idea as with the meat. Bacteria is considered a living thing. He put broth in different like test vials, and when it was closed, like nothing happened. But when he broke the like container and allowed like air and allowed the broth to be exposed, it grew that bacteria and showed that it needs to come from something living. Right? All right, last section is the needs of living things. So what 4 things do all living things need to survive? Anyone?
A living space.
Okay, living space. They need a place to move and grow and things like that. Landon?
Water.
Water. Gage?
Food.
Food. And Logan?
Oxygen. Air.
Air is part of it. So the last one was like a little phrase. Alex. Yep. Stable internal conditions. Or this is called that homeostasis. Right? It's regulating your body and function so that you can function. True or false, living things use food as their energy source to carry out their life functions. Landon.
True.
True. That's how we get our energy, by eating. Organisms that make their own food are called what, Ansley?
Autotrophs.
Autotrophs. And then organisms that cannot make their own food are called, Gage?
Heterotrophs.
Heterotrophs. Yep. Okay, and that's what we are. We have to eat things in order to get our energy. Is the following sentence true or false? Living things can live without water for long periods of time. Think about yourself, because you are a living thing. Naily? It is false. Living things can only go a few days without water, and then you die. Okay? Why do living things need water then? What did your text explainer give? Ansley?
You need water to obtain chemicals from this.
Okay, so obtain chemicals from surroundings. Allie? Okay, yep. To stay hydrated. Another thing the book talked about was, I believe, to like help cells or like help things move throughout your body as well. Right? Question 24 then, organisms compete with each other for space to live. Amaris?
True.
It is true. Think about if you guys have ever moved, maybe you need to move to a bigger house because like you have siblings and you run out of space, things like that. You're moving to adapt and get that space to live comfortably. Animals compete and fight against each other to have like a dominant area because there's a certain food supply or water supply, things like that. Allie?
It's kind of like similar to how you're buying a house. Sometimes you have to try to get
Yep, yeah, like you're fighting and trying to put in that high bid to get what you need. Yep. Our last question then is why must living things have homeostasis or those stable internal conditions? Why is that important? Gage.
Without the homeostasis, then our cells will like overheat and like stop working.
Right. So we need to maintain homeostasis to allow our cells to function. So like you said, if they overheated, they're not going to work. Think about like when you get overheated and you start to sweat a lot, you have to take that break to kind of cool yourself down, get a drink of water, find a cool place to sit, because your body is starting to like break down and not be able to function because that balance is off and those conditions aren't stable anymore. Okay? If you have not submitted this yet, please do that now. and then we will move on.